Good morning. This is Arthur Day speaking. We're delighted to have you online with us this morning and look forward to sharing with you a little bit about our program here at the University of Texas, Houston. This is a very expansive and very innovative program, and we'd like to share a few things of importance with you to let you know what assets we have and to let you understand a little bit about what your experience would be like if you were a resident here at the University of Texas, Houston. We have a large dedicated faculty here in neurosurgery and neurology. We have one of the busiest emergency rooms and transfer centers for acute care in the entire country, which brings us a huge number of acute interventions for aneurysms, tumors, vascular malformations, as well as spinal and cranial trauma. And we have a great referral practice as well here at the institution. Today, we're going to have several serial presentations about our program. And the MC for the program is going to be one of our chief residents, Cole Lewis. Cole is now a PGY-6 resident. He's 2 months into his chief residency and has been a product of our institution beforehand as a medical student here, so he knows the program very well. And I'd like to now turn it over to Cole to lead you through this experience. Cole.
Thanks, Dr. Day. So welcome to everybody. We're glad you guys get an opportunity to spend the day with us and learn a little bit about our program. As Dr. Day said, I was a medical student here and I got a lot of experience and exposure here. And so I want to talk a little bit about why I chose to stay around and why this was the right choice for me. As Dr. Day touched on, our program is blessed with a high caseload, a variable case presentation, which gives us a tremendous experience. We're blessed to have really spectacular staff, technically superb surgeons, and we've just got a really great resident complement. And so I want to talk a little bit first about the agenda for today. So we're going to have a series of videos, as Dr. Day mentioned. First, we're going to talk about a video or see a video with Dr. Kim and Dr. Day. They'll go over the history of the program, the development of the program, as well as kind of some future directions. Next, we'll go to a video with Dr. Cochran and Dr. Chang, where they'll be talking about some of our other non-Texas Medical Center sites, as well as the Neuro ICU and the setup here. We'll take a little brief intro into a Dr. Day lecture, which is one of the real values of the program. And then lastly, I'd like to end with a resident compilation video where we all talk about kind of what the program means to us and why it was special and why we chose to come here. A few notes for today. The whole video is being taped, and so if any of you guys have technical difficulties or something went too fast, this will be available to watch again at your own leisure. If there's any questions that you have, we have several residents, Dr. Monterey, who's a PGY-5, Dr. Parker, who's a PGY-4, as well as Dr. Zima, who is a PGY-2, and they are online with you guys right now. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to shoot them into the chat panel, and we'll answer anything that we can. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and to set up the first video for Dr. Kim. So Dr. Kim is our chairman. He's developed this program tremendously over the last 11 years. We've gone from a creation of a residency to 1 and 2, now a 3 resident per year complement, which is really remarkable in just such a short period of time. And then Dr. Day will talk a little bit about the curriculum here and kind of the future of the program.
I'm going to go over a little bit of our history as a group because we really haven't existed that long here as a program, and I think it would be good for you to hear that. What our mission is, how we think about it, introduce the faculty, go over some of our programs, and then Dr. Day is going to go over the residency in detail, which will help you kind of understand what the program is like. So, I became the chair here in 2007, and it was a pretty small department at the time. The main thing is there was no residency program. There was very little teaching. And the total caseload was about 1,000 cases. Most of them were urgent, and they were all based here on this campus. And in the last decade, we've had more than 100 new faculty come. The retention rate has been quite high. You'll see some of our outcomes performance, which has been really good. The TMC case volume is roughly 4,500 cases now here. Across the system, we do about 7,000, and you can see it's become quite a large group over a very short period of time. And so this is a slide of the 24 clinic locations our group is in. The residents don't go to those. Obviously, they're here and at one other campus, but that dispersion helps bring all of these cases into our main medical center. And we decided early that it was going to help us to form teams of physicians that work together. So, we are a multidisciplinary group. So these 61 physicians, the non-neurosurgeons are all in the department. And that's important because you can coordinate financially and teamwork, and we don't have issues with endovascular being somewhere else, so on. And so it's become quite a large group and this is probably one of the largest in the country now, and certainly the largest in Texas. This has been our case volume growth, and starting from about 3 years ago, we hit almost 40% neurosurgery market share in Houston. So this is not our data. These are data from the Texas Hospital Association, and you can look at it online. And you can see we're 2.5 times bigger than the second largest program. It's not just that our volume is high, but our quality measures have become really excellent. So are you all familiar with Vizient and University Health Consortium? You've heard those words before. So they're the kind of the benchmark for all academic medical centers. There's about 125 medical centers represented, and includes every top program in the country, UCSF, Brigham, places like that. And they actually take, and there's not like a reputational component, they take patient data only. And the way they do it is they classify it into what is expected, so that's your risk stratification, and then what you observe. So you may have a patient come into your hospital that is expected to die. It's an 89-year-old with a big stroke, then that mortality expected is 1. If the patient dies, then you're at 1, and but if you have somebody who's a 23-year-old elective spine patient come in, their expected mortality should be 0, and if that patient dies, then that's an issue. So that's how you do it. You observe the actual mortality, and then what you expected. And we didn't start out so great. We were actually like 112 out of 120 programs at that time, but you can see how much it's dropped. And these are older data, but actually more recently it's even been lower. So for each patient that is expected to die at our hospital, only one will actually die or less. So this is ranked across the country, and we've been anywhere from 3 to 6 to 9 in the last 4 or 5 years nationally. Infections, everything we track, and I've got a lot of quality data, but this is just a highlight. So what about our education programs? I'm going to go through the history in a little bit of detail because it's unusual. So we were approved to be a 1-a-year program in 2008 in January, and so it was too late for us to go through the match. And the way the RRC and ACGME works is when you get a complement of 7, which is what we got on probation, it doesn't specify what years they have to be. So you could, in theory, match 7 residents in 1 year, wait till they all graduate and match 7 residents again. So we didn't quite do that, but we started taking 2 residents a year early because we thought we're going to be large enough to be a 2 resident a year program fairly soon. So the first 3 years in a row, we took 2 residents, and we were getting close to our complement limit, And then we applied to go to 2 a year, and that was granted in 2010, which was pretty unprecedented. I don't think any program's gone from 1 to 2 that quickly. Dr. Day became the program director around that time, and he's done a really fabulous job of the residency, as you'll see. And then we started taking 3 residents a year in 16 after we were granted a 3-2, and then now we're a 3 resident a year program. And so what we've done is just fill in people from below. When we had an increase in complement, we did not bring in a lot of transfer residents because, I think transfer residents can be problematic, but we also wanted our residents to go through the entire program as we've devised. So we're not quite at 21, as you'll see. We have 3 residents a year right now at our PGY 4s, and above that it's 2. But in the next 3 years, then we'll be at our full complement. We do not expect to go to 4 residents a year. I think at some point there's too much dilution. You don't spend enough time with the residents. I've heard some jokes among the faculty at 4 resident a year programs that they actually have to look at the name tag when they see a resident to see. I know that's a joke, but you need some level of intimacy. So we feel like 3 residents is just right. We also spend a lot of time with medical students, and our residents are expected to be teachers as well as learners. And we started rotations, and as you'll see, almost 1 in 3 UT Houston medical students now rotate with us in neurosurgery, which is a very large number. We have a lot of fellowship programs to be recognized as a real fellowship now. It has to be CAST approved. I think you're aware of what CAST is. It's the Committee for Advanced Surgical Training. Dr. Day led that for the national organizations for many years. And we have several CAST approved fellowships within our program that you'll hear about later. So this has been our growth in education programs. We do have a lot of research, and most of that was funded through philanthropy. So in the last 10 years, we've raised a very large amount, and currently we've gone from 1 clinical trial and 3 labs to, at any given time, we run about 35 clinical trials in the department. We have 20-some labs, and our NIH and just extramural grant funding hit $6.5 million, which is going to put us in the top 10 nationally for NIH funding. Our total research spend now is about $8 million a year, which is a pretty large program. So these are some of our markers of excellence. We're now by a wide margin the #1 program in Houston, the largest in Texas, and one of the largest in the country. We're achieving excellent outcomes. We've got major research programs. We're getting national recognition in terms of our ranking and UHC, NIH funding. We also became a Walmart Spine Center of Excellence about 3 years ago. We're just approved to be in the Pacific Business Group Health, and that's another kind of expanding program. We have a lot of patients flying in to Houston from all over the country. And probably at this point, almost 400 out-of-state residents are having surgery with us at this medical center, which is almost 10%. And then if you count people coming from San Antonio, Austin, other parts of Texas, that increases quite a bit. And not only are our educational programs really strong, and I think you'll see that after listening to Dr. Day, even now I believe our graduates are doing quite well, and I think they're going to do even better going forward. So these are all the graduates we have had in our whole program. The first 2 gentlemen we took outside the match the first year because, like I said, we were too late for the match. Joshua was a very smart, driven, excellent young medical student who is from Mexico, and he wanted to train in the U.S. And he was a fellow at the Brigham and Women's where Dr. Day and I were, and we got to know him some then. So we took him in our first class. He did exceedingly well, and we arranged a neuro-oncology fellowship for him at Sloan Kettering. And now he's on faculty here, and you'll meet him. He's doing, I think, about 300 brain tumor cases a year. He's got a lab going. He's doing exceedingly well. Dr. Miner was a UT Houston medical student that I met when I first came, and he dropped out of the match to stay in our program, and he had a Navy commitment. You'll see a lot of, for whatever reason, our first several residents had these military commitments, so obviously they had to go typically for 4 years. In our next class, we had Dr. Abdener, who went into private practice. Dr. Lowe, we thought would be great on our faculty as well, and he did a 1-year spine fellowship at Cedars. And before leaving the program, we had arranged that he was going to come back and be on faculty with us. He fell in love while he was in Los Angeles, and then after he came here, he got married, and now he's got to move back to California. So it's sad that he's not going to be on our faculty. Eddie Sue went to a very good private practice in Atlanta, Georgia. Ali Turkmani did an infolded endovascular fellowship as well as finishing our residency program, and he's now at the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale. Wes Jones, another one of our graduates, did an endovascular fellowship here and then elected to do a spine fellowship at WashU, kind of an unusual combination, but he's back on faculty as of this year, and you'll meet him. St. Morris had an Air Force commitment, and Jessica joined our faculty too. She did an infolded spine fellowship here. And then Daniel Monsaves was in the Air Force. So I think you can see that an overwhelming number of our graduates have already gone into academics, mainly because we've hired all of them. But, Ali got a good job too. And I do think that our graduates are going to have excellent opportunities to go where they want and be what they want to be. And you'll see how our program is structured to help make that happen. So what was our approach, and how did all of this happen? And I think first and foremost, you need to recruit the best people. It's all about the people at the end of the day. As you're doing that, there has to be clinical volume. For surgeons, we have to do a lot of surgery to be good at it. The trainees need to be in the OR a lot to be good. And you also can't learn to do complex aneurysm surgery or DBS if your program just isn't doing those cases. And there's a lot of programs that don't have that. We focused on increasing that from the beginning. Of course, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. Once you get better people, more cases come, but you need cases to get good people and so on. And then absolutely the environment of education and research is important. And I think the main reason is that the best people want to teach or do research or both. And for that reason, I think a residency program was critical. So here we ended up creating a kind of a continuous cycle of success. First programs went well, people came, that went well, more people came, hospital invested more, and so on. And so we're now at a kind of a much more mature place, and we're not growing so quickly, but we're continuing to grow and so on. So how do you recruit and retain the best people? And this applies to all of you as well, as you're thinking about, which is the right place for you. I think first you have to find people that believe in the goals and values of the program. I think that's critical. For us, we've all looked for people who are interested in education or research. I think the job must fit the career goals of each faculty member, and it doesn't do any good to have somebody come and leave in 3 or 4 years because they're unhappy. So we look not only at our needs, but really what is it the person wants to get done. And I think that's the same thing for you. You have to, as you go through your residency process, think through what is it you really want at the end of the day, and see if that fits what the program offers. And it's less, I think, about rotations and, history, but more about values and does that fit kind of where you want to be. And we look for people that are very self-directed, that want to do something themselves, that are motivated and engaged. And then once they arrive, there has to be good support and they have to feel like they can meet all of their goals. So I think that's happened here, and I think that a lot of that has to do with our values and culture. We're a hardworking group that tries to do really great things. We treat patients extremely well. A lot of our programs are structured for the patient, not for the doctors. For example, when a patient comes in with a brain tumor, they see me and a neuro-oncologist and a radiation oncologist all at the same time. And through that service, believe it or not, we diagnose and treat more patients in Houston with brain tumors than MD Anderson by a long shot now. And that wasn't the case years ago. They have more treatment failures from across the country that come, but that is a reality. And the faculty there will talk about that as well. And so our goal has always been to be the best and perform at the highest level. And we used to say, we're getting to the promised land, and this is kind of what you have to do to get there. From the beginning, we're a group that wanted to win the championships. We're not just happy to go and play. We wanted to set the right culture, bring in great people, and then on that you build dominant clinical programs. Once you have that, you can do excellent research and education. And so today I think we're actually there. We used to talk about climbing that mountain, but I think we're on the other side. And a lot of people ask me when we interview later, after the last 10 years, what do you see for the next 10 years? So I'm just going to go ahead and answer that. I think what we need now is to just stay relatively stable. We're still growing organically. Last year we still added something like 7 or 8 faculty. This year we'll add another 4 or 5. So it's not like it's stopping, but we're not creating whole new programs or whole new services, going to another location, all of that. And that's exciting, but it's also disruptive. Our residency had to go from 1 to 2 to 3, and the rotation schedule had to change. All of those things were a lot of kind of activity, and now I think we're at a place where things are very stable, and we just want to mature and really perform well. So that's what I'd like to see over the next 10 years. So I want to go a little bit over the medical scene in Houston and then describe to you our hospitals and the infrastructure. So Houston's the 4th largest city in the U.S. It's projected to overtake Chicago in the next decade or two because we're growing so fast here. There's 2 medical schools now and 3 residency programs. A kind of a primary care medical school is just approved at the University of Houston that'll be starting up. And there's a DO medical school that just opened up in Conroe, which is about 2 hours north of here. But for a city this size, that's not a lot of medical schools and programs and so on. It's a very competitive city with lots of neurosurgeons and spine surgeons, but interestingly, a lot of solo practitioners still here in Houston. And we are, and UT Physicians, of which we're part of, is by far the largest physician group. And there's somewhere between 1,000 and 1,600 doctors and UT physicians, depending on who's counting and how you count. There's many large hospital systems. Memorial Hermann is barely the largest, at something like 24% of market share. HCA is at about 23% as number 2, and so on. There's only 2 level 1 trauma centers in this whole city, and they're sitting right next to each other at the TMC. It's quite an anomaly, but that's what it is. And every major insurance company is represented. So, this is a little beyond the scope, but if you go around the country, there are some states where one insurer is dominant, There are some cities where there's one or two hospital systems that are dominant or competing with each other. Houston is not like that. It's still a kind of a wild, people can go anywhere, insurance companies can't really regulate that. And we've been the beneficiary of that because the referrals are still largely determined by physicians. If we didn't have that environment, I don't think we could have grown so much. So this is the Memorial Hermann healthcare system. There's 17 hospitals, of which we practice at 6 or 7, and you guys only go to 2, okay? The main campus is here. It's adjoined to the UT Houston Medical School, as you'll see. And within this campus is the Mission Neuroscience Institute, which was initially endowed in 2005. And I was initially recruited to be the director of that. That's when the process started. And currently, we run 141 neuroscience beds on this campus. We have 38 neuro-ICU beds on this campus. And if you look at all the campuses where we have neuro-ICU programs, we're at close to 70. So there may be one or two other groups that run that number of beds, but it's not a lot. Just on this campus, we run 9 ORs and INR suites every day. And that's going to have to expand because we've been quite socked in recently. And all of the advanced technologies are here. Children's program, we have a good pediatric neurosurgery program with 3 faculty. They have about 40% market share in Houston, so they do close to 500 surgeries. The good thing about that program is that it's a separate hospital, but it's just a separate tower in the same medical complex. So you'll see that. And for things like covering call and so on, that's very convenient. And then the only other place our residents go to now, and they'll be spending 4 months as a PGY4 and 4 months as a PGY6 is Southwest Memorial. So we started that several years ago, mainly because it felt like our residents didn't have a place to go where they could be like the attending or really run a service. And I had that when I was a resident. We were at the San Francisco General, which was largely our hospital. And, here all the attendings are crawling all over the place. So it's nice to be kind of away from that. And so we found, Southwest Memorial. The good thing is it's not a county hospital that's undersupplied, all those kind of things. It's part of our hospital system, but we did not have a neurosurgery program there. It is in a relatively poor part of Houston, so the payer mix is not good and so on. But that's also a positive because, we're caring for all kinds of different patients and we don't want to just limit it to people that can come here. So we started by putting an ICU team there, and then once that got established, we hired Dr. Cochran, who you'll meet as the first attending. He was our vascular fellow. And then now Wes Jones is there. This year we're going to add a 3rd attending. So it's grown from nothing to, I don't know what, probably about 800-900 surgeries a year already, which is about the volume of many small programs. And so currently we have a endovascular fellow going there. We have a neuro-ICU fellow. We have an ICU attending. We have 2 neurosurgeons. It's going to be 3 neurosurgeons soon. So it's a nice bona fide hospital, but you can ask our residents about it. They really love being out there. It's kind of their service to run. The kind of pathology that comes in is very different from here. The patients tend to be sicker, have been neglected longer, and I think it's becoming a great part of our program. And I think the other thing that's unusual is that we've got all of these different areas of neuroscience care all in one department. So I'm going to just start going through just pictures of our faculty that you'll meet, and they're roughly grouped for specialty. Spine, epilepsy, brain tumor, ICU, pediatrics, and so on. I'm going to talk a little bit about our research. We have 20-some labs now, and I went through some of these data before. I think an important thing is that we just got an F-25 grant from the NIH. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's an internal training grant that comes to programs where we can designate our residents as being a recipient. And that's a very prestigious award that allows you to increases your chances of getting a K grant, which then helps set you up for other grants down the road. We've had many significant investments in research infrastructure, which I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we have a strong biobank. We have a clinical data system that allows our residents and faculty to do case reviews or pull patient data without having to go through individual charts, because it's all in a digitized format. And we have a fair amount of support for statistics and so on. So we do allow our residents to look at any lab in Houston for their research here. Because there is some activity here, we don't, unless it's something extraordinary, let people go outside of Houston, but anything in Houston is available. So this is our IQ unit is what we call it, and we have a lot of different types of people facilitating research, things like regulatory compliance and so on, so that our faculty and residents don't have to do that. And this is a Venn diagram showing that you need samples, you need patient data, then you need kind of outcome studies, quality studies at the same time as you're doing translational basic work. And if you combine all of that, I think you can really make progress for the field, which is one of our major goals. So currently we have almost 10,000 samples available for research, and this is our schedule. We take this very seriously, and starting from the PGY3, start meeting with the four of us 4 times a year to start to lay out what you like, what you don't like, where you see your career going. And really after 2-3 years in neurosurgery, you should start having an idea. Then next year, we have meetings to really flesh out a project that will help reach your goals. You have to write a grant application at this point, which further solidifies your thinking, and then this is your actual research year. It's a PGY 5 year. So here are some of our faculty, and I'm just going to go through them. We have a big neuro-oncology effort, stem cell, CV research. Epilepsy is just developed into a whole new institute. We recruited a top neurologist, epileptologist, and a bioinformatics person, and they're hiring something like 5 new research faculty, of which Dr. Seymour is the first. We have an excellent statistician, and so on. So lastly, I'm going to go through a few things that's a little unusual about our program. We do have a program where at the end of the PGY 5 year, if our resident has done good work, we'll hire them an RA for the next 2 years. Now, once you come out on faculty, if academics is your goal, you have to kind of do your clinical work and run a research program on the side, and you might as well learn that as a resident. The other thing is that a lot of projects take years to come to fruition, so you have that 1 full year, but it needs time to mature and so on. I've loved and done research for years, but it's very hard when you're a resident or running around and trying to establish a practice. And there's nothing like having somebody show up every day and spend 8-9 hours a day on your project. And so we want our residents to come out, and if they want to do research going forward, to really be able to hit the ground running. They've gotten a lot of work done already. They've defined what their project is, and I think that's a very powerful thing. So that's how we've structured that program. So what distinguishes our program? I think you'll hear that we have an intensive ICU experience, and then our residents are really in surgery a lot and have significant operative experience starting from the PGY 2 year. We are not a program that waits till the senior years to operate. And I think, in general, you need to have a longer period to mature. Some people can do it on a shorter time frame, but the more exposure you have, better. I think you guys may have heard that case minimums are starting to come to programs, and they've listed the minimum number of programs that every program has to do. We will have zero problems with that. There's not a single case on there that we don't do, and in fact, our residents can get the whole thing done in the first 4 years. Our faculty are truly subspecialized, as you'll learn. We don't have tumor doctors that do 70% spine and some tumors, or CV doctors that do that. I mean, and to be good, you have to be subspecialized. I think the residency structure is set up, and you'll hear more about this from Dr. Day, to be really good for career development. And I think the proof will be in the pudding as our residents go out and keep getting good jobs. But I think you can see that's happening already. I've also hired a lot of different fresh graduates, and our residents are by far and away the best prepared when they come out, and they can start working on day one, and that's a good thing. And many faculty nowadays need a little bit of mentorship. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think our educational program's good. We have a rich departmental education environment, very strong focus on teaching, senior faculty that can mentor our residents. And we try to maintain, and I think this is true, a very happy group of residents that come and want to work together to do something great. And it's not a backbiting kind of program at all. So with my last slide, I want to talk about kind of what we want our residents to learn. And another question I get a lot is, what are we looking for in our applicants? So I think this is kind of the same thing, and I'm going to lump that. I think we want people that want to be really great doctors and surgeons. You know, not just I want to get trained and go out into practice. We want each of our residents to come out and have been exposed to everything and pick what's right for them. And we're not all going to do everything, but you need to have that exposure. We want our residents to be able to work with people, manage, teach, be good citizens, work in teams. And that's what we're looking for in our residents too, people who want that. They need to learn how to work in a world of performance measurement, because that's increasing, and regulation. We all need to work on advancing our field, because there's too many diseases that we still don't have much impact on, like glioblastoma, although that's going to change. And you know, we want people that want to be a leader in some area. Now, the one thing I will say for sure is we're not a program with a cookie cutter model of we're looking for this kind of person, a scientist or an MD, PhD, or this. You know, it doesn't matter to us what area or what kind of career you want to have. We just want people to be really great at it and be leaders. So that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, during this session, I want to talk to you about the structure of the residency training program and what you can expect to do during the various times that you're here. We do have a very diverse group of residents from around the country here. So one of our real assets in the training program is the great people and great individuals. This is a picture of the latest version of our residency. We currently have 18 residents in the program, and over the next several years, we'll populate it to its finality form of having 3 residents per year for 7 years, or a total of 21 residents here in this program. Now, the structure of the program is what's called a 4+3 training program model, and is divided into 2 sections. The first section, the first 4 years, we refer to as the core. And during that period of time, you will learn all the basics of neurosurgery and how to take care of a neurosurgical emergency. You will learn all the details of what it takes to be a neurosurgeon on call for general neurosurgery. Everyone gets the same standard basic first 4 years of their training. After that 4 years is completed, the next 3 years will be largely self-directed, or individually designed to meet your individual needs. So during that period of time, we will use that time, as long as your core training has been satisfactorily completed, to develop you along the lines of subspecialty training, including, in some cases, CAS certification for enfolded fellowship, some type of subspecialty related research that is connected to your subspecialty interest, and of course the development of administrative skills needed as a chief resident to learn how to run a neurosurgery service. All these are designed then to parallel what's happening in other parts of training, such as taking advantage of subspecialty time to get you certified in areas where you can get enfolded fellowship training, to correlate your research with your clinical skills so that makes it more likely for you to be successful in an academic program and academic career. And then to let you be able to, in addition, be ready at the end of your training to practice. Will have so much experience by the time of your training that you won't have to go out and then learn how to do stuff. You will already be doing comprehensive stuff and will be allowed freedom to do many things so that the transition to practice is complete by the end of your 7th year. The educational model has a gradient designed to allow you to learn the simple things first and obviously progress in a natural way to more complex situations as you go through your training. And again, focused on the first part of the training being the basic things that you need to save a neurosurgical life, how to manage emergencies with CSF, with blood, with compression, and the various kind of conditions that we all have to deal with when we're on call for neurosurgery. This diagram then shows the resident rotation schedule, the long-term plan for your individual experience here. The first 4 years, called the core, a 4-year basic training. PGY5, research, during which you're completely independent of any clinical responsibilities except for those that might be related to your research. PGY6 is the chief residency experience. And then, assuming everything has gone well with these years, the last year will be self-directed for you to pursue elective scholarly or clinical pursuits and the accomplishment and achievement of enfolded fellowship, if appropriate. The core training, the first 4 years, is divided in the following ways. During PGY1, you will spend the entire time either doing neurocritical care or acute care. You will take care of the trauma service in the ICU in such a way that you will learn all the management of how to make sure a person gets through an operation and gets through the acute emergencies that come across a neurosurgical arena. At the end of that time, you will have satisfied the requirements for CAS fellowship training in critical care. You will come back to revisit the critical care later to cement your skills, but you will clearly be able to have a certificate validated status wherever you go when you go into practice that shows that you can manage your own patients with their critical care issues. There are 4 months of night float during PGY2. During that time, you will stay in-house and 6 days a week and will take care of the neurosurgical emergencies that arise during our hospital program. We have a very busy emergency room, a very busy stroke practice, a huge number of transfers for brain tumors, for subarachnoid hemorrhage, and for trauma, spine. That experience is extremely valuable in teaching you how to be able to acutely identify and stabilize a patient when they first come to the emergency room. You will have 8 months of spine, including 4 months in PGY2 and 4 months in PGY3. You'll have 4 months of pediatrics during PGY2. You'll have a total of 8 months dedicated to our cranial service, during which you will take care of functional problems, tumors, etc. You will have 4 months of in-house night float covering the ICU, and you'll spend 4 months on the cerebral vascular service and 4 months at our ancillary hospital, an independent practice hospital called Southwest during PGY4. The final 3 years are individually directed, as we've talked about. PGY5 will be research in your chosen area of clinical interest. We spend a number of interviews, and the entire time of the second, third, and fourth years trying to come up with the right kind of interest for you individually so that we can tailor your PGY 5-year to be along the lines of your clinical interest so that there's a marriage between your research and your clinical training to make you more successful as you get done. Chief residency will be in PGY 6, during which you'll learn skills of administrative experience, professionalism, how to work in a healthcare system, judgment for when to do things, etc. Maturation to become the kind of doctor that you're going to want to be when you're finished. And then the final year, PGY 7, will be a transition to practice, getting you ready to walk out the door and walk into another hospital to be independent. And that, in many or most cases, will be with a fellowship experience during which that time is dedicated to doing both your clinical and research interests during PGY 7. Is to try to get you independent and ready for practice and get you fellowship training, if we can, to save a year of your future. So the overall, again, schedule looks like this, with 4 years of core and a sharp line between the last 3 years where you're working on your individual responsibility to become a neurosurgeon. The department is heavily invested in research. Dr. Kim will be addressing that in his individual session, but we have a large number of PhD and engineering faculty in our department. We have very high rankings and higher than in our NIH funding and our grant availabilities. We have an F-25 research grant from the NIH for you to use during PGY 5. We have major investments in our research infrastructure, including a NeuroCore, which has clinical database collection on all patients, a tissue bank, biobank repository for samples, and a large innovation and quality unit to design if you want to do outcome studies analysis. The research opportunities are extremely variable. This is the largest medical center in the world. We are a major player in that center. The departmental and center research responsibilities are largely unlimited, from clinical trials to quality initiatives and outcome studies, engineering projects, basic science. Anything basically you wish to do should be here in very high levels at the Texas Medical Center in Houston. And of course, all of those facilities, including those of other institutions in the Houston area, are available for your research, depending on what you wish to do. During your PGY 5 rotation, we will make available to you a research assistant program. You do your research during PGY 5, get it going well, and as it progresses, you then make a request to have continuation of that research during your PGY 6 and PGY 7 years. You will submit a grant application with Dr. Kim and I reviewing it with your preliminary data, your ideas for future work, and any research assistant needs. Afterwards, assuming everything is doing well, that will be granted and will be and almost all have been granted to date. It will be obviously dependent on the amount of work that needs to be done, how much work you've done, the seriousness of the intent of your project, and the progress you've made during PGY 5. But in essence, you will be able to keep your research going through PGY 5s, 6s, and 7 years with your research assistant in place, funded by the department, to give you 3 years of individual academic preparation for a career in academics. We have other supportive services at our hospital. In our department, we have a dedicated leadership coaching program. Dr. Bodine Orr is a professor at Rice University who spends individual time with all of our residents throughout their training, meeting with them and talking about the issues of life and the issues of working in a complex medical system and how to figure out how to handle people and how to handle problems as they arise. We do have, in addition, a group project sponsored by our pediatrics group to go to a country south of the United States for healthcare needs. That's been temporarily postponed because of the COVID environment, but we hope to reinitiate that next year. And of course, we have a softball team that participates in the New York City softball tournament that we expect high things from in the future. When you work in this program, you will be expected to know things. This is a graph of how our residents do on the board examinations. Every resident 1 through 5 take the board examinations every year and take it for credit during PGY 5. This graph shows the passing rate of all those residents. And in 2019, all of the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s passed the exam regardless of the year that they were in their training. That means at the end of PGY 1, you will know enough to be able to pass the boards if you were to take it for credit. That basic knowledge base then percolates through the residency so that getting ready for boards becomes a very natural and a very expected thing, and it raises your level of experience and knowledge in a passive as well as an active form. Our average board scores across the board then for all residents who take the test, not just for credit, are over 500, counting the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s on the average. So we have a very high basic knowledge skill set within our residency, starting with the first year of your training. We have a busy trauma service here and a busy ER for other kinds of conditions, so we need in-house coverage. Your coverage would be principally during PGY 2 and 3, during which you will spend will spend 4 months in each of those 2 years on night float. The PGY 2 will be night float covering the neurosurgical ER. PGY 3 will be spent covering the ICU. And you'll have, of course, backup of one of the chief residents during that coverage, and all the attendings would be available. We also have an advanced practitioner, a PA in-house with you on Monday through Thursday to help you with your responsibilities that will help you in the training and the management of these patients. We have during the daytime and nighttime 3 dedicated PAs or nurse practitioners to our practice to get much of your administrative work done, such as discharge things, arrangement for rehab, things of that nature, to keep your experience more focused on your neurosurgical issues. And they are extremely valuable long-term employees in our department to make your educational and daily lives much better. Our conference schedule is one of the strengths of our program. We have a conference every morning at 7 o'clock. This is a single institution training program, meaning that all the residents are here every day at the same place, with one exception during PGY 4, where they go to Southwest Hospital for 4 months. So you will see each of your resident compatriots every day. You'll see them all together at the same site every day. You'll get to work with them and know them well. We'll see each other in conference every morning at 7 o'clock, and on Thursdays we'll have 2 hours of conference. The distribution of the conference is shown here with a review of Yeoman's, the book Yeoman's, which turns over every 2 years. You'll have 3 trips through Yeoman's during your training. We have a curriculum conference, which I currently administer on Tuesdays, to talk about how to deal with cases, how to analyze and use neuroanatomy and neuropathology and neuroradiology to determine what's best for the patient. A cerebrovascular conference on Wednesday, a extensive conference schedule on Thursday, and then a spine conference on Friday. We have several subspecialty conferences in addition to the tumor board on Tuesday, neurotrauma conference on Wednesday, epilepsy conference on Thursday, and pediatric neurosurgery on Friday for those individuals who are on those particular rotations. Houston is a spectacular place to be. For the northerners, it's a warm place, but yet the snowfall here is very much limited to not interfere with your ability to feel warm and snug most of the time, instead of cold and sometimes a little bit dreary. The Houston excitement of the living in this town, the sports teams and the energy and the restaurants and the environment are excellent. It's a great place to be, to spend some time. Thank you.
So I hope that gives you guys a good understanding of how the program's structured, where we've come from, and where we're going next. Next, I want to talk a little bit about a video that you'll see with Dr. Cochran, as well as Dr. Chang. As Dr. Kim mentioned, Dr. Cochran was one of our vascular and skull-based fellows several years ago. Phenomenal surgeon, wide breadth of cases, and so he actually stayed around on staff and is out at Southwest predominantly. And so he wants to talk a little bit about our other facilities and the Southwest rotation that you guys would get an experience with. Then Dr. Chang, who is the leader of the Neurocritical Care Fellowship Program, is going to talk a little bit about the neurocritical care portion of the residency training and the exposure we get that really rounds out our training. Both of these assets are incredibly important to our training here, and so I want to spend a little bit of time get them their input.
The volume at Memorial Hermann and the Texas Medical Center is essentially unparalleled. It's one of the largest hospitals in the nation. The stroke volume, the trauma volume is exceedingly high. The new operating rooms are truly state-of-the-art. They're very huge operating rooms. We have an excellent hybrid vascular operating room. We have all types of brain and spine navigation. And the complexity of the cases we do it's essentially unmatched. We just have an excellent representation of every subspecialty of neurosurgery at the medical center.
Here at UT Houston, we have one of the biggest neurocritical care programs in the country. We are the highest volume trauma center in the country, and we see more TBI than any other academic center. We also see a very large volume of cerebrovascular disease. Our ICU is 32 beds of acute care neuro ICU. We have 2 ICU teams who are taking care of these patients simultaneously. In addition, we have a 6-bed neuroelective postoperative unit where neurosurgery can admit their patients postoperatively for ICU level monitoring. Neurocritical care is a division within the Department of Neurosurgery. So all of the neurocritical care and neurosurgical faculty are partners. We work very closely together in the ICU and outside of the ICU, and we have a system in place by which the ICU teams round with the neurosurgery team each day. The neurosurgery residents rotate with us both as interns and as senior neurosurgery residents. So by the time they're done with their residency, all of our residents have a very well-rounded and comprehensive critical care experience.
So I think the benefits of working in multiple places during residency are many. The Texas Medical Center offers a very classic academic experience. In this program, working at Southwest offers somewhat of a hybrid experience. It has the high-level cases that you see at the academic center, but it's in a primarily private practice setting. I think that's important for people to see before they're done training. This hospital is one of the largest hospitals outside of the medical center. It's one of the busiest emergency rooms in the city, yet it's about 7 or 8 miles outside of the medical center, so it's a little bit different setting. It very much simulates what most people will end up seeing in real life. We have a hybrid operating room that we're in right now, where we're able to do angiograms, stroke cases, we're able to treat aneurysms, do bypass cases. We also do a lot of minimally invasive spine surgery here. When the residents come here, they play a large role in the management of the critical care patients. Here we really try to let the resident develop an autonomous practice where they admit patients through the emergency room, they come up with a diagnosis and a plan, and then they carry out that plan in the operating room. And during their time here, the level at which they do that increases. So by the time when they start, they have a lower level of autonomy, but by the end, they're managing pretty complex cases by themselves. They develop a real sense of ownership when that happens, and that really transforms them into an independent neurosurgeon.
So I hope getting to see that video with Dr. Cochran, Dr. Chang, gives you guys a little bit more information about the different attributes of our program. The next video is a little glimpse into one of our Tuesday morning conferences with Dr. Day. So this is universally one of the favorite parts of the residency here, and it's always well received during the interview process. Unfortunately, you guys would normally, on a normal year, get to see this live. But given the situation, we wanted to give you guys a little understanding of what the Tuesday morning conference is. So this is a conference that's run by Dr. Day. It is a variable case presentation. It can be anywhere from spine, peripheral nerve, tumor, vascular, trauma. Oftentimes it's kind of whatever comes in, and that's what we talk about. And it's great because it's an opportunity to have somebody that's an iconic leader in the neurosurgery field in terms of education talk you through a case from start to finish, presentation, initial management, workup, surgical techniques, surgical approaches, pitfalls you have to watch out for, as well as post-op management. It's also really cool because he takes multiple cases of the same type and he compares and contrasts, and it allows you to really get a better understanding of the pathology that you'll deal with as a resident and then subsequently as an attending. So I want to play a little video, and bear with us on the audio, but it's just a little clip so you guys get an idea of what it's like with the Dr. Day conference.
Transient painless vision loss.
Why would I?
Because the plaque or the rhombus will hit the ophthalmic artery.
All right,
first.
that's why. As it comes up to the carotid side, it has the first opportunity to go after the ophthalmic artery. And when that happens, what does the person say happens to them? On the motor strip, what is the largest representation on that homunculus? What's the biggest thing? So based on this extent, and I think that all the way goes up the base of the skull, you got a problem. But this one, go up a little bit higher.
I'd like to take the opportunity to remind you guys, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to shoot them through to the chat, and so we can get those answered for you guys. You guys have heard a lot about the structure of the program, but I think it's important that you guys get a better understanding about what the program is on a daily perspective from the residents here, why we chose to come here, and why we think you guys should consider coming and joining us at UT Houston. So this next video will look at a little bit from several different residents about the current year that they're in and the current rotations that they're going through. And we will be right back to answer your questions.
What's unique about UT Houston is that as an intern, you're handling purely neurologic problems. You actually get to rotate through 3 different neuro rotations, all the way to functional patients. So it's really awesome. This is one of the highest volume trauma centers in the country, and as an intern, that's really incredible. There was one day, for example, where I had 3 subarachnoids in the emergency department, and I did 3 EBDs in one day, and I don't think that many interns can say that across the country. And we pushed someone to the OR for a operative epidural, and that's all just in one day. So I think it's just an unparalleled opportunity to learn and do these more complex cases as an upper level. As an intern, you really get to interact with the attendings, which I think is very unique about this program. On consult, I really call all the attendings to staff every case that I see in the emergency room, and they really help tailor my management. They're really invested in their residents, and they want you to be the best neurosurgeon that you could be.
In this program, I spent 4 months in the pediatric neurosurgery rotation, all as a PGY2. It's a really great rotation. We have 3 attendings, and they all have different areas of interest, different approaches to the way they solve different problems, and they also operate very differently from each other. It's a really great experience for a PGY2 because we see different ways of doing things. You spend a lot of one-on-one time with the attendings, improve your surgical skills because you're alone in the OR with the attending doing every surgery. You see a wide variety of problems, from common things like shunts to even seeing fetoscopic, endoscopic surgery for myelomeningocele repair. So it's really great. And then the other thing is that pediatrics is still kind of a general neurosurgery rotation in the sense that you see everything from brain tumors and cranial surgery to spine surgery. And so it's a really great place to start. And then moving forward, I'll be going into specific areas like spine trauma and cranial and really delving deeper into those particular areas. So I have an interest in pediatrics now that I didn't have before.
I think our program's unique in the curriculum setup. So there's a 4-year core where you progress from being an intern to a 4, and by the time you finish your 4th year, you should have a core expertise of knowledge to handle really anything that comes in the door that may be considered general neurosurgery. 4th year is kind of the capstone year of our core curriculum, and so it's when you're operating with Dr. Day and you're operating with Dr. Kim and you're going over to Southwest and running a service by yourself. By the end of 4th year, you have basically completed everything you need to be a basic neurosurgeon.
I think with the way the PGY5 research year has evolved, it teaches you how to set up a lab, run a lab yourself.
We have faculty that have research interests in pretty much every field of neurosurgery. So they're very willing to help out with getting us the patients that we need to help with research. I think most importantly, Dr. Kim is very helpful in that regard. We have quite a few fellowships. I think one of our more popular ones is our endovascular fellowship. It's a 5th and 7th year experience, but once you're done with that, you're fully certified to do any endovascular procedure. One that they're in the process of making is a CAS certified spine fellowship. One thing that I think is good with our program is we don't take a lot of outside fellows. There's a lot of emphasis on our training.
The Texas Medical Center is a pretty unique thing. Top-notch medical facilities here, different hospital branches and headquarters here. The fact that it's so concentrated allows a wide breadth of patients to be taken care of. We're blessed to have a really, really remarkable caseload here. That's important because each and everything that you want to see, you're going to get exposed to here. There's several things that I think really stand out and that I think you should consider if you're an applicant. I think number one, you have a case volume that's unparalleled. You have high case volume in each subspecialty that will give you adequate exposure and adequate training in each neurosurgical subspecialty. I think number two is the complement of attendings that we have here. We've got a lot of really remarkable, technically superb surgeons that are very passionate about their field of work. I think number three is the resident complement we have here. I think as a whole, we all get along very well. We're all friends. And I think number four is the research. It's grown every single year. The research, the top 10 NIH funding is remarkable, but I think it's just the start. A lot of really exciting things being done. And I think just a lot of really passionate people that care a lot about what they're doing, and it's only going to improve from here.
So hopefully these videos today have given you guys a little bit of a better understanding of who we are at UTHealth and why this program is so special. I want to thank everybody involved with their help in putting the videos together. If you guys have any additional questions, please reach out to Roxy Perez on the email list on the screen, or to myself or Dr. Chris Connor, who's my co-chief. We're happy to answer any questions that you guys have. If you need anything in the future, please reach out, and you guys have a good rest of the weekend.